Nous sommes prêts.
We are ready as Europeans to offer security guarantees to Ukraine and the Ukrainian people the day a peace deal is signed. This is the commitment we made in Washington. The contributions that were prepared, documented, and confirmed this afternoon at the level of the defense ministers in an extremely confidential manner allow me to say the preparatory work is complete. It will now be endorsed politically, and it allows us to do so in a solid way. And we will come back to you tomorrow, after these meetings and discussions, to say that we are ready for a robust, lasting peace for Ukraine and for the Europeans.
Well, of course, the topic that is being discussed now, particularly with Zelensky, is regularly raised, the so-called security guarantee for Ukraine. On August 29th, Zelensky outlined his own vision of future security guarantees during a briefing, indicating three priority elements as he sees it. He listed the maintenance of the current size of the armed forces of Ukraine while ensuring reliable financing and armament. He forgot to mention that the size of the armed forces of Ukraine is something he himself also adjusts, throwing into the fray those who are forcibly mobilized and are absolutely unprepared for it. He also forgot to mention that, as he put it, reliable financing and weapons for the armed forces of Ukraine will be provided by the international community, that very Western minority. Secondly, what he mentioned was the defense of Ukraine by partners in a sort of NATO-light format. I think he mixed it up with some sort of cocktail. In case of, as he also mentioned, a new invasion. And thirdly, the maintenance of anti-Russian sanctions, the use of seized Russian assets for, as he said, the restoration of the country. But I just want to say regarding the third point. Considering the corruption and entrenched theft in Ukraine, no assets will be enough for them to restore the country. Even the humanitarian aid, as well as the military aid that comes during this critical period, is being embezzled. The countries that are donors to Ukraine, however, are not donors of the kind of blood that can benefit but rather donors of tainted blood, which only kills Ukraine, and these donors cannot make the Kiev regime account for the deliveries. Can you imagine what will happen with the money and resources that will be directed towards the reconstruction of Ukraine? It will be an eternal reconstruction. All these ideas of the Kiev leader, which are essentially a copy of initiatives of European sponsors, or rather not sponsors, but the European Party of War, as we have said several times, are absolutely unacceptable in nature. They are aimed at preserving Ukraine as a springboard for terror, for provocation against our country. They do not guarantee Ukraine's security but rather guarantee danger to the European continent. Ukraine long ago lost its independence, is governed from outside, and has de facto become a real colony for its Western overseers. There can be no talk of independence at this stage, considering Ukraine's condition. It's not because someone wishes it to be that way but because that's the state it is in. Because the neo-Nazi entrenched in Kiev, for his own selfish interests, is willing to auction off what remains of Ukraine and readily sacrifice the lives of millions of its inhabitants. For what? For two components: personal passions and goals, along with tasks set by the Western community, which continues to arm the Kiev regime for this very purpose. European sponsors have not stopped doing this. They do it with a single aim and a specific task: to continue the war until the last Ukrainian.
You've expressed many times your frustration and disappointment with Putin, but there's no action since you took your office. Don't you worry that...
How do you know there's no action?
But don't you worry...
Wait.
What actions did you take? I'm with Polish radio.
Okay. How do you know there's no action? Would you say that putting secondary sanctions on India, the largest purchaser outside of China, they're almost equal, would you say there was no action? That cost hundreds of billions of dollars to Russia. You call that no action? And I haven't done phase 2 yet or phase 3. But when you say there's no action, I think you ought to get yourself a new job, because if you remember, 2 weeks ago I said, if India buys, India's got big problems, and that's what happened. So don't tell me about that.
Who's going to make a decision on Ukraine, Mr. President? What is your message to Putin? Mr. President, your message to Putin?
I have no message to President Putin. He knows where I stand, and he'll make a decision one way or the other. Whatever his decision is, we'll either be happy about it or unhappy. And if we're unhappy about it, you'll see things happen.
You gave Vladimir Putin a 2-week deadline to agree to talks with Zelensky. that deadline is now nearly approached. Can you give us any indication of when you will make a decision?
Well, I'm having a conversation with him very shortly, and I'll know pretty much what we're going to be doing. We've taken very strong action, as you know, and in other ways we've taken very strong action. But I'll be speaking to him over the next few days, and we're going to see.
With
I'm going to know exactly what's happening.
Mr.
But
President,
I'm not happy with all the people. You got 7,819 people killed last week. Russian soldiers and Ukraine soldiers, right? Not American soldiers, not soldiers from Poland, but they're human beings, they're souls. They have parents, they wave goodbye to their parents, and their parents never see them again. That's the end of them. Over a stupid war, and I want to see it stopped. Now, we have stopped the money. We send weapons to NATO, they pay full price. We don't, Biden spent $350 billion so stupidly. And it was one of the reasons that this whole thing happened. A big reason this war happened was sitting right in these chairs, this one in particular. So I think we're going to have a good solution, but they're losing soldiers at levels that nobody has seen since the Second World War. This is the worst conflict, and it's just going on and on. It's one's defense, one's offense. The offense moves a little bit. Just a little bit. You take a look. They move inches. They're dropping bombs and killing everybody. The whole thing is not since the Second World War has there been anything even close to this. And they're not soldiers from my country. This is my country. But I have a power to end things. That's why I was able to end 7 other wars. And you know that I thought of the 7, basically 7. Those were tough wars to end. Much tougher, I thought, than the war with Ukraine and Russia. I thought that Ukraine and Russia have a very good relationship with President Putin. I thought that would be much easier. I thought that would be in the middle of the pack, maybe one of the easiest. Sometimes you never know with war. War is a very interesting thing. You never know with war. War is complex and dangerous, and what a mess, what a bloody mess. It's going to get done one way or the other. But they have to stop killing all of these souls. They're souls, and we have to stop killing. Thank you very much.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.